What happened to Unturned? Unturned is one of the strangest success stories in gaming. Free zombie survival game with simple graphics made by a teenager somehow became one of the most played games on Steam. At its peak, millions of players jumped into Unturned and basically it was everywhere. People were making huge bases, creating custom maps, running massive servers, and spending hundreds of hours just messing around with friends. But today when people talk about Unturned, the conversation is different. The game that once dominated Steam feels much quieter. Servers are less active, updates feel less frequent, and a lot of players who grew up with the game have moved on. So what actually happened? How did one of the biggest free games on Steam go from a cultural phenomenon to a game that many people remember more than they play? To understand what happened to Unturned, you have to go back to where it started. The game was created by Nelson Saxon, who originally started developing it as a small project. At the time, the idea was simple. Take the survival formula popularized by games and make it more accessible, blocky art style. The result was a game that was easy to understand but had a surprising amount of depth. You spawned into a zombie-infested world with almost nothing. You searched buildings for supplies, you found weapons, you built bases, you fought other players, you raid, and so on. The game was rough, but the roughness wasn't part of the appeal. It felt like a game made by players for players. Are you guys trying to set up your own Unturned server but you don't really know where to start? Then Pine Hosting has you covered. Pine Hosting is very user-friendly and not hard at all to master. I literally had no idea how to do anything, but with Pine Hosting's navigation and super easy interface, I learned the basics very shortly. They have locations all around the world, cheap pricing, and they also offer a variety of games. There's not just Unturned servers, they have other game servers such as Minecraft, Ark, Project Zomboid, Rust, and a lot more. My favorite feature from Pine Hosting is the plugin and workshop installer. With just a simple click, you guys can install certain plugins. And make sure to use code LDG for 30% off, and let's get straight back into the video. Unturned exploded because it arrived at the perfect time. Survival games at the time were becoming extremely popular. People were fascinated by the idea of being dropped into a dangerous world and having to create their own story. But many survival games were expensive, complicated, or difficult to run. Unturned basically solved that problem. It was free, and it ran on almost any computer, and anyone could understand it within minutes. A younger player could download it and start playing immediately, with more experienced players could spend hundreds of hours building bases, managing servers, and creating their own custom content. A huge reason for Unturned's success was the community. The Steam Workshop transported the game. Players weren't just consuming content, but they were creating it. There are thousands of custom maps, weapons, vehicles, and mods that gave the game almost endless possibilities, and some servers became their own communities. People created roleplay servers, PvP servers, survival servers, and completely unique game modes. But eventually, the momentum started slowing down. One of the biggest reasons was the survival genre changed. When Unturned became popular, the idea of a survival sandbox felt fresh. But over time, players started expecting more. Games became more polished, worlds became bigger, and mechanics became deeper. Games like Rust, Project Zomboid, and other survival games pushed the genre forward with more advanced systems, better visuals, and more complex player interactions. Obviously, Unturned still had its charm, but compared to newer games, it started to feel like it was stuck in another area. Another problem was that Unturned's simplicity eventually became both its greatest strength and its biggest weakness, because the game was basically easy to get into. But after hundreds of hours, many people had almost seen everything. The progression system was simple, loot routes became predictable, and the zombie threat, they were basically without any threat. Once you get yourself a good weapon, a strong base, and enough supplies, there wasn't always a clear reason to keep playing, unless you find a new server. The development of Unturned 2 also created uncertainty. After Unturned became successful, expectations grew. Many players wondered what the future would look like, and that's where Unturned 2 was announced. But years passed, and the project became much less visible. And for basically players, this created a strange situation, because the original game was still alive, but many people were waiting for the next evolution of Unturned that never fully arrived. I do know a lot of people that were saying, Unturned 2 is coming out, I'll stop playing Unturned until Unturned 2 comes out, and then they never touched it again. Unturned did not fail, obviously not, but the game achieved something most indie games never achieve. It became recognizable and it built a very nice community. What we truly need for Unturned is more features, more new updates, better maps, and more reasons to return. I do think that California 2 did give a big bump for Unturned to come back to how it was for a while, but obviously this needs to keep going on. Unturned's story is interesting because it represents both the best and worst part of indie games. Small projects can become massive and simple ideas can compete with huge studios. I really do think that Unturned can revive and can do really well if we get ourselves more maps, more updates similar to California 2, and perhaps even more vanilla content. That's basically how Unturned is. My opinion is Unturned is not dead, definitely not, and it never was dead. but we need updates and new content for Unturned to continue. If it wasn't for Workshop, I would strongly think that Unturned would be long gone by now. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you guys agree with what I said or if you disagree. Let me know which is your favorite memory when you grew up playing this game, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!